In this video, I will go over some of the pros and cons of choosing to be placed into a curriculum track and into particular curriculum tracks, as well as perhaps some warnings. So, the curriculum track opportunity applies only to being exempted from one or all things in the last three rows that you see here in this table on page 2 of the syllabus. If you choose a track, and no one has to choose a track at all, you just do the course, you just do the schedule as outlined in the syllabus. One thing I want you to keep in mind is that everybody is doing everything that you see in this row, this row, this row, this row, this row. But depending on the track you choose, if you choose one, you could be exempted from one or more assignments in these rows. No one, again, I have to iterate this, no one has to choose a curriculum track. You can make an A, B, C, D, or F, just following the curriculum as it is. But I do want to iterate. If you're going for an A, then you cannot choose a track. Do not choose a track. You're basically choosing your track by default by saying if that's what you're thinking. I want to make an A, therefore I'm not going to commit and tell her I want to be on the B, C, or D track. But that also means that if you want to make an A, you are doing all of these tasks down here. All right, so let's get into the pros and cons of those by looking at the assignment descriptions. So I realize some of you might have read these already, so I'm not going to reread them, but if you haven't read the descriptions here on page 3 for these kinds of assignments, then you should pause the video and read them. So assuming that you know what is in here, what I say now is going to help you understand much better what I'm going to talk about. So you can see that I have something called contextualized question generations. You do this in Unit 2 and 3. It could be Unit 2 and 3, and I may add a question generation prompt in your objective analysis essay. I may have you do a third one within this essay. But if you, how do I want to phrase this? Okay, so let me just quickly go over these again. So then these are replies to peer questions. You do these only twice. You do it for Unit 2 and for Unit 3. So you'll do 2 of these. This is something that is done at the end of the semester. This requires going over a written lesson. So you read like a 2-page lesson on contextualized question generation. You get the template, you get a checklist, you get a lesson on how to do it, and you get examples. Then you watch about a 15-minute video on what it is that you're supposed to be doing in constructing a paragraph that is about 300 words long. And this is done in a discussion board. So that's probably going to take up, you do have to read all of the peer replies. So let's say it takes you an hour to read the peer replies, an hour to work through the lesson, and an hour to construct your paragraph. So you would spend about 3 hours on this assignment. So just keep that in mind. So if you're doing 2, then that's about 6 hours of work for the semester. This one, replies to peer questions. There is no particular lesson, though I do have very detailed instructions on how to respond to a peer question that someone posts in virtue of doing this. So this relates to this. Now keep in mind, I just want to let you know that you do not respond to a peer question until I give you instructions on how to do that. So just as a heads up, if you do a contextualized question generation assignment and you see somebody's already asked you a question, do not answer it until I give you instructions. Okay, so for this part, there's 2 paragraphs. And you don't have to watch a video for this one, but you do have to read the instructions and make sure that you are working through them carefully. You also have to spend time and intellectual energy trying to make sense of the question that your peer generated for you. One paragraph is focused on just answering your peer's question. So you respond to the peer question, so what you answer their question. And then there's a second paragraph where you evaluate the question. And this is about another paragraph long. And again, I have very specific requirements that I write down. So I would say that this is going to take you a couple of hours. So if you're doing 2 of these a semester, then that's 2 hours that of work. The objective analysis essay, that is pretty comprehensive and pretty in-depth. There will be video-based lessons, and there will be lots of examples with video coaching videos. I would say that the time you would spend following all of the videos as intended and taking notes is going to be about 3 hours for this. And then you're going to spend because you also have to look through a discussion board and read all of the responses to decide who you would like to work, well, it's not work with, but basically you're going to be comparing or contrasting an argument with the peers. Of course, you do that only after following the videos, because I have very specific instructions. I've invented this writing assignment, so you need to learn about it. I would say you're going to need a few hours just to get the instructions, watch the videos, read the discussion board, and then you're probably, because this is a challenging cognitive intellectual task. It is expected to be 800 to 1,000 words. You're probably going to need another 3 hours. So I'd say the minimum you're going to spend on this would be 6, maybe more. All right. So if you decide, okay, and here I realize, So if you decide you want to be on the D track, you don't have to do any of this writing, okay? That means that if you're on the D track, you're just doing these mandatory assignments. You do one writing assignment if you're in the D track, okay? But then, like everyone else, you're doing the Smart Book lessons and the tests. Now, what I say now is going to apply somewhat to being in the C and B track. A con of that, so a pro, of course, is you don't have to watch all and any lecture videos, you don't have to read any additional lessons and requirements, you don't have to go through discussion boards and see what your peers have to say. That could also be a con, right? Because it's fun to see what your peers have to say. Now, you will not be barred from reading the discussion boards, but you will not be able to respond to students. So again, if you choose the D track, you are not allowed to respond to peers. That's going to mess it up for everybody else, because I have a system down whereby I make sure everybody who is participating and not exempted from this assignment gets a response from a peer. A con, going back to, so going on with the cons, and again, what I say here somewhat applies to others, is that the less work you do here, the more important these things are here, right? So you have to make sure that you do really well on fewer assignments if you're on the D track, right? You don't have as much wiggle room to mess up or bomb something. All right, so those are the pros and cons of the D track. If you are on the C track, okay, so if you're in the default track, or you're trying to make an A, or you chose to be in the B track or the C track, you're doing this. Now, if you choose to be in the C track, you do not have to do a reply to a peer question, nor do you have to do the objective analysis essay. So again, the D track doesn't have to do any of these. If you're on the C track, you do not have to do these two right here, but you do have to do this here. And I think I told you that both of them in the different units collectively altogether will take you about 6 hours if you're working through it as intended. So just remember that means that this and the stuff that comes before it, it's more important to do well on those things. And of course, a pro is that the less you have to think about, the less you have to get done and learn and study for, the less stressed you are. You can really focus on studying for that test, for example, and doing well on it, instead of worrying about some writing assignment that you have to do after the test. So that's definitely a pro, right? Just keep in mind that if you're exempted from any of this stuff, it means that you have to do better on the other stuff. You have to do, well enough to get at least the grade that you're trying to get by being in that curriculum track. All right, so I've just told you that if you are in the C track, that you do have to do this one, but you don't have to do this one. Okay, so now let's go to if you're in the B track. So if you're in the B track, you do not have to do this last one. So if you're in the B track, you do this and you do this, but you don't have to do this thing at the end of the semester. And this is done at the very end. And so if you're thinking, man, I'm going to be tired at the end of the semester, I want to get a B, I'm willing to do some writing during the semester, but I think I'm going to be too tired, I need to study for that chem final or the engineering final, then this might be an option. Guys, C means degree, right? If you just need the credit for the course, then maybe this is an option for you. If a D is all you need, some people just need the credit, and a D suffices for their degree. Now, if you're really going for a B, like you do want to have that grade that means above average, then by all means, choose the B track, okay, the B curriculum track. And you won't have to do this, as I said, okay? So, of course, if you are in the default track, or you are, then you can still possibly make an A, but you will be doing this. You will be doing all of the writing assignments. Okay, so my hair's a mess. I just want to iterate that no one has to choose a track. It is not a requirement that you choose a track. The reason why I came up with curriculum tracks is because I realized that some students just need the credit. And so it seems like sometimes students just do an assignment because it's there, but maybe they don't really care about it, or their heart's not really into it. They're not really engaged for whatever reason. And so they just do it to do it, or they take the 0. And I thought, why do that? If a student's willing to live with a certain grade, why don't I just take some things off of their plate and allow them to do that? Now, some of you might be saying, why are you making us work harder for a certain grade? It's not like that at all. The curriculum that you see is the curriculum as it is. That's just the regular curriculum. It's not that I'm making more work for the A's or the B's. That is the curriculum. What I'm doing is I'm giving you a little bit of choice, a little bit of flexibility, and saying, if you would be content with a certain grade, let me go ahead and exempt you. And like that, you can focus doing well on the other stuff. So maybe you appreciate what I'm doing. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know. However, make sure that you listen to all of this video very carefully, and make sure you listen to all of the video that went before where I discuss the implications and consequences and give you warnings about track placement and what kind of grades are guaranteed and what kinds of grades are still possible. Okay, but again, feel free to call me during office hours, email me questions about this. So long as I can tell that you've watched these videos, I will answer your questions. If it seems like you didn't watch a video and I know I covered some information in a video, then I will point you back to the video. All right, take care.